the M1 MacBook Pro base model from Apple. It starts at $1299 and is available in different configurations. Today we're unboxing and getting initial impressions in real-life situations, summarizing the use of about 3 days of using this, wording it as simple as possible to help you understand easier. From basic things all of us want to know, to media dabbling like battery life, hardware, software, video editing, and the Geekbench app's processor score. Explained later. Thanks for all the support getting me to 1,000 subscribers so far. Give this a like if it helps, and subscribe for more. Let's get started. So for the M1 computers, I'll be separating my videos in categories throughout the weeks. Ooh, it's floating inside. What? Very nice graphic. I like how that looks. Apple always has really good packaging. It feels like a slimmer box. MacBook Pro. Apple logo, space gray Apple logo. MacBook Pro on this side. Here you see my specs, 8GB memory, 256GB SSD, which is standard on all Macs now. Wi-Fi 6, 13-inch MacBook Pro. This part's magic. There it is. Little 13-inch MacBook Pro. Not too heavy, not too light. USB-C to USB-C. Adapter here. Paperwork, MacBook Pro. Notice it now says USB 4. Matching stickers, space gray. So I got the base model for this 13-inch space gray MacBook Pro. First, I will point out the elephant in the room. It's got that M1 chip and 8GB of unified memory, which means it's now together with the chip. Well, I guess it's kind of an elephant in disguise, because it's hidden in the same MacBook Pro design since 2016, keyboard exempt. This is a big deal because it's now the brain of a new line of Mac computers that's no longer made by a company called Intel. Away from the limitations of using someone else's chip, this means you get way better performance and speeds because all parts are custom made for each other, now moving in unison. Apple can also have better control of when they release their new models, like they do with their iPhones, for example. Everything else on the outside of the laptop is the same as the last base model MacBook Pro. That high-resolution 13-point-inch screen at 2560 by 1600 pixels, still the brightest screen in a MacBook Pro at 500 nits. They still haven't updated that 720p camera. Same bezels, which is the black frame on the screen, and one headphone jack on the side. The two USB-C ports look the same, but they actually have USB 4 support inside of it. One great thing about MacBook Pro compared to MacBook Air is that it has a fan. So when you're pushing performance like exporting or rendering huge 4K video, the fan will help keep your processor from throttling. MacBook Air doesn't have a fan. It could lose performance when it heats up. I'm used to older models where they had more ports. 2 USB ports just isn't enough for me. So I had to get adapters because I need it mainly for 3 things. That's my external drive, charging, and using a monitor. These adapters make it a less attractive work experience. As for the form factor, it's still a light device for even a light guy like me. Easy to hold with one hand to grab and go. Big Sur works great on this M1 computer. The first couple boot ups took only about 11 to 14 seconds. As expected from any new computer, basic operations were snappy. I downloaded the Geekbench app and it immediately offered to download Rosetta 2, which is a tool that automatically adjusts the app to work with the M1 chip. As the developers who make the apps catch up, we should have an even better experience per app. To have decent Wi-Fi, and web browsing with Safari was as fast as my other devices. I'm sure when I get a Wi-Fi 6 router, that would be more noticeable. With lots of Apple's new products on the latest software, you can now play 4K videos on YouTube. This computer played 4K videos right away. I'm still exploring the latest software, but loving it so far. I plan to go more in-depth in future videos, so stay connected with me by subscribing. Telling you this in the middle of editing the video you're watching, it's been generally smooth so far. And it's 4K 60 frames per second, edited on Final Cut Pro 10.5. I've had a couple dropped frames, but I haven't had a computer this strong before, so I honestly don't know if it's normal. Final Cut did load my project noticeably fast. There has been a few times where pressing play wouldn't work, but it might have just been Final Cut. To give you an idea with exporting, I exported the first 4.5 minutes of this 4K video you're watching without music, working with my T7 SSD with just basic effects and editing. This took just under 19 minutes and 25 seconds. It never went higher than 7 GB of memory. Not too bad for the base level MacBook Pro, exporting 4K. What really amazed me was my fan never kicked on, both in the editing and export process. I also felt my computer and it was room temperature. This is the amazing performance that Apple's been promising. Battery life. First, let's start with Apple's announcement of 20-hour battery life. Watching Apple TV videos at 50% screen brightness. That's one potential scenario, so I wanted to log my own. I will be posting a video just about battery life over a week. But for now, here's testing one charge cycle to give you an idea. I personally don't know anyone who keeps their beautiful Retina display at 50%, so I tested it at 90%, which is more typical. I personally keep it at 100% most of the time. So this to me is the in-between. I started by unplugging at 2:15 a.m. Did some downloading and installing, web browsing, transferring 4K videos, and other tasks. Pause the screen if you want to read the full log. Here we go. Here you see we start at 2:16 a.m. Battery at 100%. Siri, go away. It took about 3 minutes for the lacy drive, hard drive. When compared to the Samsung T7, it took less than a minute. So 3:10 a.m. and the battery's at 97%. And we are now at 56% battery. 8:30 a.m. at 29% battery now. So I've been watching a few YouTube videos, mostly in 1080p and some in 4K, and this is now in 19%. So after more web browsing, we are now at 5% battery. Little task here and there. It's at 3%. And yeah, it's been, this thing has been awake since 2:15 a.m. and it is now 12:03 p.m. I'll be doing a separate video on battery life so you can get different scenarios in more detail. Real quick for the video editors out there, I started one day with 78% at 10:53 a.m. and had to charge by 3:29 at 7%. This is while using Final Cut Pro 10.5, and the fan still hasn't kicked in. To give you an idea of charging, after 50 minutes, it went up by 54%. Geekbench is an app that tests your processor with the software. It provides a score so you have a number to measure performance. Let's start the test as I explain more. I did 2 of them, one per software. First is macOS 11, which it came with, and after is the latest 11.0.1, which is supposedly more optimized for M1. Here's 11.0. Looks like it's good compared to many of the Intel chips before it. Single core score measures how good it operates simple tasks, like browsing the web and opening apps. Multi-core score measures things that make your processor do several things at once, like editing and gaming. Now let's compare it to the latest software. For 11.0.1, looks like the single core score slightly increased, and multi-core increased by about 100. I'd say that's pretty good on paper. but it's a good thing many of us are doing real life tests on YouTube. That leads me to conclude here. So far, I say this is surely good for its value. Once apps become optimized for M1, it should be even better. Subscribe with the bell icon so you don't miss any of the tests and in-depth reviews. I hope this helped. If so, give it a like. Thanks for watching.